Greetings, family. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from in the world. My name is Angela Asante-Armar. I'm your host today for the Women in Political Leadership series, as for each week. And you're welcome. Streaming from Ghana on the United States of Africa Facebook page and also the Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa page. So welcome. If you haven't joined us before, and even if you have, just let me know, drop a comment in the comment box and let me know where you are joining us from in the world. The purpose of the show, if you haven't watched before, is for us to have just open, honest, frank conversations with women, both in and out of politics, about the realities of politics, why we have such an underrepresentation of women in the political arena, and what we can do to increase the number, and the challenges and anything else that comes up in these interesting discussions that we have. So today we have a really special guest. All my guests are special, but I'm really excited to have this guest on today. And before she formally comes on the platform, I'm sure you can see her. Today we are joined by the Honourable Martha Karua of Kenya. And I mean, she has a list of accomplishments that I think will take me a while to get through, but she's a social justice advocate and politics and governance expert with a career of over 30 years, rooted in law, so a fellow lawyer, and spanning across social activism, judicial, constitutional, and political arenas. She's an accomplished lawyer, as I've just said, a politician who played an important role in the founding and development of Kenya's pluralistic politics in a bid to expand democratic space in Kenya in the 1980s and 1990s. And she is a founder of organizations such as the League of Kenyan Women Voters, or Leading Women's Advocacy through FIDA, FIDA. She actively lobbied for increased women representation in political positions, the very purpose of this show, to help that. And her prestigious career in public service terms has actually, it stems from 20 years as a member of parliament for Kichugu constituency. I hope I said that correctly. Minister of Water and Public Works and Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. And if that wasn't enough, besides that impeccable track record, Martha holds an LLB from the University of Nairobi, master's degree in business administration from USIU in Africa. She's a mother of two and grandmother of three. So please give her a warm virtual welcome to the platform. Honourable Martha Karua. Welcome, Sister Martha.
Thank you, Madam President.
Not quite there, but yes, we are on the path. It's such an honor to have you on the platform. And I'm already reading the comments. I'll just put this one up for you. This is a lovely one. That's our own Kenyan Iron Lady. I love her because she fears no one. Heart like a lioness, more life.
Thank you.
So as you're with us today, and we like to have some general discussion, you have had a career that spanned a long time, longer than some people have been alive. And so can I just ask, firstly, like what was it that sparked your interest in politics?
I guess it is the repression of the 90s. The democratic space had shrunk in our country. We had become by law as one-party state. Dissent was not tolerated, and the ruling party was encroaching on every space, including professional space. The government had this appetite to affiliate all organizations, including professional organizations. And when the president said he wanted to affiliate the Law Society of Kenya, together with young lawyers, I was then a young lawyer, we started actively resisting and asking the then leadership to delink from the government and not to agree to be put under the wing of the executive. One thing led to another, and activism within the Law Society culminated to my election as a member of parliament after we had successfully forced the return to plural politics in Kenya. So basically, I was an agent of necessity, along with others, for bringing change in our country. And I can tell you, 30 years on, we are still pursuing change. It's elusive.
Yeah, I think change. Well, I think change is the only constant, as they say. We're always things always changing, and it's funny how things are always changing, but human nature makes it so that we're never used to change. It's very ironic. Um, so, given the little backdrop that you've given there, what kind of challenges did you face? Maybe first entering politics as a woman, and has those challenges at all changed to where we are now? And you just mentioned the changes.
I'll say the more things change, the more they remain the same. It is true that close to 30 years ago in 1992, when I first vied, a lot of people were not taking me seriously. Although I had name recognition countrywide, I had been an activist for democratic change. When I said I was going to run for a parliamentary seat, quite a number of them were asking, since when did you become a politician? Yet the same question was not being asked of my male colleagues. This was a special reserved for me as a woman. And I started noticing that discrimination. I also noticed that within the political party, there was an unspoken brotherhood where the men were opening up to each other, space for each other, but not space for women like me. I had literally to force my way into the circles of the political party that we had chosen. When I look at what happened to me, and I look 30 years on, I'm still seeing young women and women across the board being mistreated by political parties. I am seeing safe seats being given to male candidates and women being marginalized, either promised they'll be nominated or being allowed to vie where the parties have no influence whatsoever. And although now we have quota system by law and by the constitution, which unfortunately are not being observed to the letter, I have seen the same brotherhood out to strangle women's participation. And that's why I'm saying, yes, we have more numbers in parliament, we have better laws, but the more things change, the more they remain the same. We still got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. It's interesting, and so I mean, on one hand, it's understandable. On the other, it's not. Do you think that if the men are in majority, then what do they have to fear, if I can put it that way, from a small number of women coming in? But what I'm hearing from you is that even that there were not that many of you, the women who are entering in, and you, by all rights, sound like you were one of the trailblazers. They still went out of their way to kind of close ranks, to not, to try and make it difficult for you to get in. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I think there's this sense of entitlement because men are used to the privilege. They have come to own it because patriarchy gives males privilege. And political spaces have sort of like become their space. So when women want a share rob the political cake. They're viewed as intruders, as unwelcome disruptors, even when it is by law. Right now, our constitution makes it mandatory for Parliament to make a law that will facilitate a good number of either gender to be represented in Parliament. Actually, the clause, we call it not more than 2/3 gender rule, that no gender should be represented by more than 2/3, meaning the underrepresented gender should never be less than 1/3. Our male parliamentarians find difficulty in that rule. They say it's against democracy, yet they're not able to see that it is against democracy to have any gender underrepresented, because then it's not a government that represents the people. So when you hear these arguments, you know that being products of patriarchy, they have come to own that space as their own. They don't want to share. And unfortunately, we are raising our children without enough sensitivity, and our young boys have come to expect the same male privilege. When I look at today's parliament, it is the youthful male who is more vocal against women's inclusion than the older generation. So we've got work to do to ensure that society gets this understanding that when you create space for both men and women, it is for the benefit of the entire society. And I see this happening within families. Within families, we don't struggle. My brothers will support me, my father will support me. The same men, when they come to the public space, they will see women, and anything agenda women becomes a challenge to the male privilege. And I'm not talking about my family, I gave it as an example because they really do support me. So we need to let people know that unless if we understand gender from a family perspective, you will be fighting your own daughter and the females in your family if you fight the advancement of women in society. You're putting hurdles for your daughter, for your grandchildren, for your mother, for everybody. We need to understand gender from a family perspective.
Absolutely. What you're saying there makes me think that if it is the case that for everyone or the majority of us that, you know, whilst it's among the family, it's not an issue, then it kind of you know, links to the stereotypical, I guess, roles that we are supposed to have, as in literally that the woman's place is just in the home. So whilst there in the home amongst family, that's fine. But you step out of there and then it's like, how dare you, basically.
It's sort of like that, yes.
And so we have the men on the one hand. Okay, I understand. So have you noticed, or what has your experience been as you've noticed, as in, what's your experience been in politics as you've noticed more women entering the political arena? Are you likely to gain more support from them? Not so much, or what's your experience been like?
It is yes and no. Women have come in larger numbers since the 2013 general election in Kenya under the current constitution. So for 2013, 2017, we have more numbers. But those women have not necessarily been, they've not demonstrated at all times a unity of purpose to drive the gender agenda. They do when rallied, but it's not coming naturally. And we've got to remember that women, like men, are brought up in patriarchy, and patriarchy lives in us. Unless if we unlearn the patriarchy that is in us, we are likely to behave towards ourselves just the way our male counterparts are behaving. And therefore, the sensitization of the need to uproot patriarchy, that's an agenda that has to be continuous. There's a place we reached, and it's like we thought Now that we have a constitution that gives us quotas, that everybody knows that's a mistake. This has to be a continuous agenda, and we have to make sure that the government has programs that help to deconstruct patriarchy in society. We cannot be moving the gender agenda, yet the school books are giving examples that still depict the men as leaders and women as the support. So there are many, many things we have to do to reimagine our societies. And until we do that, even if we have a parliament of 50-50 or beyond 50 like they have in Rwanda, it may still not translate to actual gender equality in the real sense in society. Our work is cut out. We have to come up with new ways of furthering the gender agenda.
Sure. I really resonate with what you're saying about just because, you know, you have the constitution or basically laws in place that should promote these things. It doesn't mean that, and I like to say, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that yes, the law doesn't exist in a vacuum. We still have tradition and culture and everything else that comes into the mix. So on paper, it may look good, but if we still have a very ingrained system of patriarchy, then things will move as slowly as they're moving. Even here in Ghana, they tabled an affirmative action bill. This was about 13 years ago, and it still hasn't been passed. Now, to me,
Yes.
that says that, and of course, this is to enable more women to be in places where they can make key decisions. And to me, if something has been going on for for so long, yet the people who are going to benefit from the bill being passed are the women. I mean, it's going to benefit everyone, but people would say that, well, it's going to benefit the women, and then the majority of the population. So something that's going to benefit the majority of the population is still not getting through the gates. Then you know you have a problem. And for me, and certainly the stance that Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa takes, is that nothing is going to change until you get more women together in the highest decision-making places. Because, like yourself, you've had to forge your own way against the tide, and the legacy of the patriarchy, like you said, is like it's ingrained in us, and one is the competition. So instead of banding together, we're competing with each other, feeling like, oh, well, there's only space for one of us or two of us, instead of uniting and sharing experiences and things. So until we can use our voices, both the men and the women. Should not just be about the women pushing the agenda for women, because as you rightly said, when we have more women in decision making places, everybody benefits, because if there's more balance, there's more harmony. That's the whole point. But at the moment we are struggling against this fear that I would call it the fear that if the women come in, then the men are redundant. That's to me what seems to be the fear, you see. So I definitely point that out, and I emphasize the point because there are some of us that think, oh, the men are the only reason why we are not moving forward. And it's a bit more complicated than that. The women have to take the responsibility as well to move forward. So the more of us that are on the same page and we can come together, that is going to happen alongside the allies, as in the men who actually understand that when more of us are there, it's going to be better for them as well, that we all move together. So thank you for that. One thing I think I actually failed to mention in the introduction is that you previously were a candidate for presidency and all things being equal, you will be contesting in the next elections. Can you tell us a bit about like your vision for your presidency if you were to become president of Kenya?
I think to begin with, we have to view our countries as a going concern. And I would like a well-managed Kenya, a Kenya that delivers results to its citizen, a Kenya where each citizen has equality of opportunity and basic services. You can't get that if the corporation called Kenya is not well managed in a transparent and accountable manner, and with the participation of the public. So without elaborating too much on what policies I would have, my first task would be to bring order, to ensure that there is rule of law, to ensure that this corporation called Kenya delivers results for its citizens.
Amazing. I've just picked up this sense that there is quoting back. I think it's one of your sayings, perhaps, in terms of patriarchy. It is real, and I think the point that you make, that I think that we don't realize that, like you say, how ingrained it is in us as well. So we can't just look to the men and how they're behaving now. We must also look at ourselves and the way in which we are behaving that is also competitive, or anti-progress, for more women to come into the arena and be supporting each other. So I understand you when you say we have our work cut out, but I'm a optimist, a realist optimist, and the change is coming. So it's now about how can we help each other, and not just how we can help each other within our countries, but how we can help each other across the continent. Because we don't have to be in the same country. I mean, we're having this conversation now. You're in Kenya and Ghana, and regardless of whatever parties we're in, we should be able to support each other, even if it's just having the conversations and things like that. So I mean, where the political arena is now, I mean, I'm just trying to think in terms of what would you say to women now who are thinking about entering politics, or even to anybody who's not thinking about it, but to encourage them to, why is it important that more of us step up and take some form of political leadership position aside from the other leadership positions?
I think politics is about people and representation is about people. If women are not represented in proportion to their population, then their perspectives are underrepresented. We need a good mix of both women and men, which will be more representative of society, and then we can be able to say this is real democracy. It's a government of the people, by the people. When half the population, because in majority of our countries, women are either half or slightly more than half. When half the population is not represented, then that democracy is a weak democracy because it is not truly representative. We need to be at the table to articulate our needs. And one may wonder whether the men can articulate our needs. Generally speaking, they will, but there are things that will be dearer to women more than to men. Our daily experiences are not always identical. When there is a sick person at home, it will be most likely the woman or the women in the house who will be looking after that person. So perhaps if there was a decision about a road and a hospital, the priorities might be different. In an average home where there is no piped water, it's the women of the house who may go to look for water. So if there is a question of whether to do the water project or again the road, the answers from men and women may be different. So little things like that. We have had a debate in this country about providing sanitary towels to women. It's to young girls in school. It is only now that is beginning to be understood. because girls' daily experiences are different, teenage girls, to those of their counterparts, teenage boys. So for real representation, we need both genders at the decision-making table. And this is for the benefit of both men and women. There are decisions we make, they're not peculiar to women, matter as health. It's for the benefit of the entire society. And I also keep on saying, talent resides in both women and men, even in our homes. When we do not properly utilize the human resources of half of the population, half of our human resources are not properly engaged, we as a country are the loser. So if we have both men and women at the table, then we are utilizing our human resources to the maximum. And I liked the example the former president of the US, President Obama, gave, that it is dumb to have half of your team not playing and expect to win. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's not even half. Half we're being is a reserved, isn't it? But really, we know that we are the majority of the population. And I say that not from a place of arrogance, but just statistically, whether you call it, 51%, 52%, whatever, it is still the majority. And that quote that you said there, that just really, it just really hits home, doesn't it? Half your team not playing and you expect to win. And it's very funny, and I think it comes back to what you were saying about patriarchy. It's very funny how the very people, I mean, generally we talk about, oh, the children being the future. I think a lot is being placed on the youth to come and clear up the mess of the ancestors, as it were, or the people that are with us now. But they forget that the first educators of the children are the mothers, the women. But yet the women seem to be the ones who have less access to education. The girls and the women have less access to education, yet they are the ones that are supposed to be the first, or are the first educators of the children. So how do you expect the coming generations to do better when you are suppressing or you're limiting the ability of those who teach them? It doesn't make sense. And yet we're in this vicious cycle, you know. The other thing that I love that you said when you focus on our human resources, given that, especially being on the how much money is being lost through corruption and other things. So a lot is about, but actually, as what you say, the thing that we highly undervalue is our human resources. And as you said, if over 50% nation is not really in a position to lend their skills and everything else, how is the country supposed? We call Africa the motherland. It's not by accident, We call our countries, or some of us call our countries, mother, whether it's Mother Kenya, Mother Ghana. How do you expect the motherland or your mother country when the mothers, the physical mothers on the ground, they're struggling in some shape or form, be it financially, physically? It's not going to work. So I absolutely echo what you were saying there. Is there more that you think? I know you say you've got our work cut out for us, and I mean, do you think that there are different things that we have to do to get the message across to men, so one message for men and a separate message for women, in order for them to really understand why we need to be at the table where the decisions are made? Or you think it's all the same message?
I think, one, women need to be very intentional in whatever we do. And our message should always be clear. If we have unity of purpose, then we will utilize all the spaces that we occupy, because we do occupy different spaces, to further this agenda. Firstly, our space as nurturers. We start the education of gender relations as we nurture our children, the importance of mutual respect and mutual support between the genders. And if we are educators pushing to have gender relations as part of our school curricula, if we are in the political field, unity of purpose to demand that our parties not only recognize that we deserve space, but give us equality of opportunity with our brothers. And mind you, in most campaigns, in many countries, and I think in Ghana is the same as Kenya, women lead campaigns. Candidates cannot win without the support of women and youth. Those are the most powerful groups. So if we used our power, our numerical strength, our acumen in mobilization, with unity of purpose, we can be able to demand equality of opportunity within the political sphere. So in every space we occupy, let's be intentional to seek our space. But if we have no unity of purpose, then we fall to divide and rule. And then we are promised secondary spaces, or wait for this other time. We are given long, winding explanations. Let's have that unspoken sisterhood across the party divide, across religious divide. There is an unspoken brotherhood among the men. Can we now start having that unspoken sisterhood among all sisters to drive this gender agenda? And let us begin with our families. It may not take a day, but we will begin seeing results.
Absolutely. Wow. I've just lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question. It will come back. But first, I want to, there is a question for you. You spoke about it earlier, so maybe you can deal with a specific question. It's about the tools. It's about the 2/3, the quota rule that you were talking about. Can you see this question up here?
Yeah. Yes, I've seen the question is about the 2/3 gender rule in Kenya. Parliament is hanging in the balance. Our constitution, which is self-enforcing, has a clause which obligated the Chief Justice to advise the President to dissolve Parliament for non-compliance with the 2/3 gender rule. The Chief Justice has finally done that. The President has not dissolved Parliament. And I think the next few days or few weeks are going to be very crucial. If the nation of Kenya rallies together, citizens rally together, we can force the President to dissolve Parliament as provided for in the Constitution. And if this Parliament goes home as it should, it will open a new chapter where we will have conquered the impunity that reigns and where we can start to truly respect the Constitution and our laws. So this is something that is on the table in Kenya right now.
Okay, so you think it is something that it's something that just needs to be respected as opposed to torn up and rewriting?
Yeah, if we are a country that follows the rule of law, Parliament must go home and we must have a parliamentary election. And in that election, we must make sure that we offer equality of opportunity, or we facilitate equality of opportunity to both men and women. And then the gender rule will be respected. If women got 50% of the winnable seats, they, just like their male counterparts, will no doubt be elected. And I keep reminding compatriots, in South Africa, they don't have gender quotas, but they have over 40% of their parliamentarians being women because of equality of opportunity. Their electoral system is slightly different from ours because ours is first past the post. In South Africa, it's proportional representation. But even in our type of system, if equality of opportunity is given to both genders, they will be elected in almost equal numbers. And that's what really must happen in Kenya.
Wow. So what I want to emphasize is picking up on what you said, that actually then it's not necessarily it's something that we should do if we like, as in women, mothers. It's not something as in entering politics that we should consider doing, if we like. It's actually our duty. It's our responsibility as mothers, as mother figures, so all women, as mothers and mother figures. It's our responsibility to make sure that the voices that are making the decisions that affect us come from people who can relate to us, so they actually make sense. So I say that because I think for a long time, and I'm sure you have your own experiences, like you said, I think at the beginning, that we tend to think of politics as the men's domain. And that's not the case. It really isn't the case. I've spoken before in previous episodes that actually the role that we play, there are so many aspects of it that naturally lend themselves to politics. So whoever the mother or the mother figure is in the home, she will be uh, the minister of food, the minister of education, the minister of travel and tourism, chauffeuring all the children around and things like that. So I think there are skills that naturally lend themselves to politics, and so we need to start thinking differently about the need for our role, not as something that's quite fanciful, but something that actually it's our duty to do it. I think you would agree from what you were saying.
Absolutely.
And the other thing,
Carry
now
on.
I think you've spoken about this. I want to ask. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm listening.
You did touch on this earlier, and I think I just want to be really specific to get the message out there for our brothers and sisters. Um, like in your own words, what would you say? What would you say that the women bring to the table? What is unique, or the qualities about women um, that they can bring to politics that's currently lacking?
I think I said that women and men do not always have identical perspectives on matters. And there are some unique qualities women will bring. And I gave examples because our daily experiences are different. And even in the home, you will see that what the father figure will prioritize is not the same as what the mother figure will always prioritize. And that is the way it should be. When you put the two perspectives together, then you're able to make wholesome decisions for the family. Now, when you exclude 50% or more than 50% of the population, then you are missing out on their unique perspectives. You're missing out on their unique talents. And it's not just about women, it's all the excluded. When you don't have people with disabilities, there will be nobody to tell you about their daily experiences, their needs. If you exclude marginalized communities, the same. You never can get the full picture without having all shades of opinion on the table. And therefore, it's absolutely essential that we have both women and men at the table. And women are not seeking to displace the men. They are simply saying, we belong here, we need to occupy our space. Yes, you've been occupying this space for centuries, for as long as we can remember, but we now are present. We are here to occupy the space that is ours. And we need to change our perspectives, both men and women, because raised in patriarchy, even fellow women sometimes may think that it is not a woman's place to be at the decision-making table. But the more women who get represented on the decision-making table, the more it becomes usual, the more it becomes normal, in quotes. And that way, we will see less and less resistance. In fact, there will be an expectation. After I had stayed as the member of parliament for Gichogo for 20 years, young school children can be forgiven for thinking that it was a female's seat when they would hear their males running for the same seat. So this is the effect of having more women on the political stage. It normalizes that situation and takes away that bias that this space does not belong to you, and itself sensitizes the next generation that this is shared space. It's not space for one gender.
Absolutely. I echo that. And I would add, it just reminds me that how far away we are from, I would say, our natural way of living. And when I say that, what I mean is, I can't give you years, but our original way as a people was that the men had a role, they played their role, and we appreciated that role. The women had a role, they played a role, and we appreciated that role. And those roles were complementary, they weren't competitive. So, like you're saying, so you have the different perspectives, you bring them together, and then you have wholesome decisions which benefit everyone. But we now seem to be in a space where we have learned how to be very competitive, which is not benefiting anyone, but it's taking some time to for those in power to relinquish some of that, so that we do take, so the women do take up the space. But it's how we, yeah, it's how we kind of go back to our roots. When we come together, I mean, it's when you say it, it makes such sense, but it's not what we're living. I say, of course, when you come together, you achieve more, but yet we still have this division. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Would you say that the because what I said at the beginning was that obviously here we're talking about political leadership, but that we need to be represented in all forms of leadership. Do you think that there are outside politics? Do you think or feel that there are any others of leadership that women really need to be in, that would have a big impact to allow, if you like, as like a catalyst to allow to open up more space for women generally outside of politics?
Yes, our constitution goes there. It actually talks of elective and appointive positions, that not more than 2/3 of any gender in any public elective and appointive positions. What that means is that even in boards of public organizations, companies, even in hiring, our constitution does require that you keep that balance. And it means that, therefore, that at every public decision-making table, there will be a minimum and maximum threshold of the gender. And I think this is important because then the more women and men are represented in decision-making tables, it actually changes our psyche with regard to the roles, gender roles, because gender roles, we are socialized. So seeing women everywhere, that's the wrong socialization that places women at a secondary position. We will begin to unlearn. And this is what we are trying to do, that as society, the biases that are at the back of our heads, we should be able to shed that. And our approach ought to be holistic, not just in political positions, but in every space, whether social, whether economic, whether political. Let us begin having representation that reflects our society in terms of gender.
Okay, so that confirms what I was going to say, in the sense that the political system, it really is key. We didn't say it here, but in terms of people thinking, oh, politics, some of the myths or the reality that, oh, they don't want to get involved in politics because it's dirty, it's corrupt, other it's for the men, all of these things. However, as you just said, and beautifully illustrated, at least in the form of your constitution, it literally is the key that unlocks, and opens up the way for representation across the board. So that's just to reaffirm the point that women, we really must enter politics. And it's acknowledged that it's not for everyone, in the sense that not everyone is at a place that they can say, yes, okay, I'm going to go step up for a political position. But even if that is not your space, there is still things that you can do, maybe to support those who have said, okay, yes, I will stand, I will face these challenges. I mean, Sister Martha, how would you, in a bid to kind of get us all involved, so those people who, for whatever reason, maybe they can't, they're not at a place where they could even consider going into politics, what as citizens can they do to support those like yourself, other women who are already in the place or want to take up such positions?
I think we have to agree that we can't all occupy the same spaces. Our interests are different. But if you don't want to run, then you can support an able candidate, preferably a female candidate, to bring that gender balance in our politics, in the management of our countries, in the management of our continent. And there are many ways of supporting. And this continent deserves good leadership. That good leadership will not come without the active participation of its citizens. And therefore, it is our sacred duty, our civil responsibility to ensure that we work to get the best leadership we can for our countries and our continent. And you can do that either by offering yourself or encouraging and supporting good leaders to get on the decision-making table. Your vote is powerful and you command a sphere of influence. It could be your family members, your peer group, it could be your social clubs, whatever space you occupy. If 100 people are doing the same, you can imagine the sort of influence you will have. We all have the power to make the change that we want to see happen. And we can and must achieve this for our continent.
I agree that we must, and I agree that we can. This is the journey that we are on. I just want to bring up this comment and ask if you have a view or a response for this one that's just come up here.
I do not quite understand that, because those conversations, whether about conventional politics, whether about business, whether about the social sphere, all those are necessary conversations, the aggregate of which do affect the outcomes of the political leaders we get. The moment we start boxing ourselves into compartments, that this is the right conversation. Don't bring in politics. Politics rules our lives. The decisions that get you good or terrible service are political decisions. The environment, business environment you get is determined by the politics of the day. Every aspect of our lives is determined by the politics of the day. The earlier we get involved unapologetically, the better for our nations and for our continent and for our businesses and professions.
Absolutely. So everything is politics. There used to be I don't know if it was quite a campaign, but at least in the UK when I was there, but they used to have a series or an advert, and it used to just really nicely illustrate the fact that actually everything is politics. All the decisions that you think, the cost of this, the availability of that, like everything is politics. So we can't run, really. It's like it's there, we're living it. So why not actually take the bold step? And if you don't want to take the bold step to be in it, then support those who are in it, because otherwise we're not going to see any change. Is my assumption. And for those who have just joined, they missed the introduction and the biography or the background I was reading of Honourable Martha Karua's career, and which has spanned over 30 years. And so the question that I want to ask is, you got in early, you've seen challenges at the start. I'm sure there are challenges that you face now. Has there ever been a point where you have wanted to give up and think, okay, that's it, I'm done with politics?
Yes, indeed. After my first term, towards the end of my first term, I was feeling that I may not want to defend the seat. I was feeling like, as the opposition, we had not achieved much, because we were dealing with a government that did not want to listen to the opposition. But towards the end of it, and I remember when I told my dad that I was thinking of not vying, he encouraged me and was telling me that I got to defend my seat. After working so hard, I can't just give it up. But then something happened. We were able to pass some constitutional and legal amendments in Parliament the last month towards the elections. That opened the democratic space and made it possible for opposition to campaign without let or hindrance. And I felt vindicated that at least we have done something substantial. And I believe those are the changes that helped us to oust the independence government in 2002. So we all get discouraged. There have been other occasions, but this was one such occasion towards the end of my first term. But we have to realize that life is full of challenges, and we've got to keep fighting to overcome. I also had occasion to resign as a Minister of Justice on a matter of principle and return to the back benches. I resigned from government, but not from Parliament. I continued to work for my constituents. So challenges are the order of the day. The question is how to surmount them. And I learned that, especially after the presidential run, that I should not let failure to be my undertaker, but my teacher. So we have to keep going so long as we have strength to do what we want to do. And that's why at 63 young, I'm still at it, because I think I've got something to give to my country and to the continent.
Wow, I love that. Failure should not be your undertaker, but your teacher.
It's Pantajali, not my original. I'm quoting Pantajali. Yes.
Oh, well, I was going to say it resonates because we kind of understand, as in, yes, some people will say, basically learn the lessons. You know, nobody who is successful today, or let me flip it on its head. Everybody that has made some success today has only done so after going through failure, because failure is the way we learn. You know,
Indeed.
as children, you don't just get up one day and walk. You fall down how many times, you know, trying to do
Mm-hmm.
it. But I think it just becomes a bit more difficult the older we get, and we start to think, oh, I shouldn't make mistakes, or being scared of making mistakes. So I love
Yeah.
that you said that. It's like we're human. We must fail.
Yes.
But some may say, okay, we are going to fail, so try and fail small, and then learn from that one. try, try and limit your failures. You will fail, but try and limit them. So I love that. Not our undertaker, but our teacher.
Yes.
And yes, I would be more what can I say, assertive in what you were saying, and saying, yes, Ma, I think I you definitely have more to give, because we're learning so much here, even in just our conversation with you. So I'm sure you have plenty more to give to your fellow citizens in Kenya, and the other women on the political scene generally. As I was talking earlier, that just because we are in different countries, wherever we can, we should seek to support one another as
Mm-hmm.
women and as men. An auntie of mine, she says, as a human being, whatever type of human being you are, you need an entourage. Like, you need people around you who are going to champion you, who are going to support you, and but who also are going to tell you when you're off track. Who
Yeah.
will call you out when something is wrong. We need that as well. So, as much as, yeah, we're talking about supporting one another, the women supporting one another, of course, do that where you are, but there are always opportunities to support beyond, further than you know. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, sometimes the support is more likely to come from outside than in your closer circles. So we shouldn't, miss that opportunity as well. So we are coming up to the end of the show. It's been wonderful having you with us, Honourable Martha Karua. Um, I just invite you to leave us with a parting message for the viewers, whether they're watching live or on replay. Anything that you'd like to say to them, and for all of us, how can we encourage more of our fellow sisters, our fellow mothers to enter politics?
I'd like to say that when we seek support as women, we are not seeking support only from women, but from both women and men of goodwill. Throughout my politics, I've been supported by both women and men. My father, my brothers are my number one fan. And in my inner circle, campaign circle, I always have men and women. So let us seek alliances based on interests of both women and men. But let us, as women, have a sisterhood, that we are deliberate about increasing our numbers at the decision-making table, because you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for the next generation. And when you do get to the decision-making table, make sure that the ladder you use to climb up, don't fold it. Let others come through the same ladder. Lend your hand to as many as you can. This is something we must do until we get to the place we want to be. And our destination is gender equality. Getting both men and women in numbers that are proportionate to the population on the decision-making table. This is a conversation we must drive right from the family to the public, and we must leave it. This is one such conversation, and I want to thank you very much, Madam President Angela, for hosting me today, and the
My
listeners.
absolute My absolute pleasure. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the viewers and looking from the comments that we've really enjoyed having you on the platform and learning from, even if just from a small part of your experience. It has been very insightful and interesting. So, yes, I absolutely echo the message that empowering women is not only the job of the women. Empowering our mothers, the women, is the work of the men and the women together because everybody has a mother. And when the mother and the mother figures are doing well, everybody does well. It's a win-win, so there need not be any competition. So I love that. Yes, men and women support the women in the same way that we women, we support the men. It's not a one side, it's not a one side thing. But when there is massive underrepresentation in anything, then that justifies extra focus and attention to try and balance the scales, as it were. So thank you so much again for having you. On behalf of United States of Africa and Global Pan-Africanism Network, if people want to find out more information, I'll stream and to add to the vision of creating a United States of Africa. Vision is streaming across the page. And also, if you would like to contribute to building a new village, a new village to transform a nation, Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa is building a village, addressing many needs, but it is mother focused, but also focused on bringing home our brothers and sisters from the diaspora who want to, reintegrate into their culture, their heritage, and to find their own way to contribute to uplifting the mother. So again, that information is on the page. And until next week, enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing. And I thank you again one last time to Honourable Martha Karua for joining us. I'm Angela Asante-Armar. See you next week.
Asante sana.